Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be talking about the top 15 most valuable peace dollars. These are basically a bunch of different, very valuable peace dollars. Some of them will be actually findable in collections. They're not pocket change anymore, but really sort of some under the radar things that you can look for. The others are going to be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions, and extremely difficult to find, but still worth knowing about in case you run across them or just to better understand one of the most interesting and prolific coin types in US coin history. So first, I have two bonus ones. We're actually going to start with number 17. There are, I think, three key dates that I'm going to be talking about today. This being the first, a 1934 peace dollar. So a little bit of context. They were struck from 1921 to 1928 during the Great Depression. They kind of taper off and they're brought back for 2 years in 34 and 35. And then there's about 35 years before we actually strike a circulating large size dollar coin after that. But the 1934 was sort of that tail end, but it's particularly rare in better condition. So mint state 63 values are really, really high, $7,000, while a raw circulated beat up example might trade for, a 30 to 50% premium to the spot price, $30 in today's dollars when I'm looking around on eBay, but can range way high for those mint state coins. That's a great reminder that in general, a lot of the mid 1920s, think 25, have pretty bad strike quality at the San Francisco Mint, so they can range up and they were frequently not saved. So a lot of the mint state, mint marked coins can actually be pretty good in this series. Next, we're going to be talking about a few coins that I've actually found. I worked for a summer at Heritage Auctions, the biggest coin company that sells coins in the world, and this what's known as a VAM, basically I think it's Van Allen and Malice, but there's a bunch of different interesting die varieties where there were different problems with the dies as they were struck. In this case, somehow a chin bar, a kind of line that extends down from the chin all the way to the date through the D. That's a relatively findable one, and that might only be worth a few dollars more than a non-VAM coin, but they're definitely cool. A lot of people like them. There's like an Elite 30 list, a top 50. There's a bunch of deep dive resources on interesting peace dollar dies, but this is one of them. Another one, and I found a bunch of these. I remember I had to sort like 10,000 silver dollars at Heritage. I found a bunch of these hairpin varieties. This is also a top 50 VAM 2F, and there's actually a couple different places that you can find hairpins and multiple dates, but I needed to mention it at least because I was pulling them out when I found them. So that's number 15. Number 14, we are actually just going to be looking at, and it also talks about kind of mint mark placement here. Sort of a minor variety, but there are some 4-ray and there are some 3-ray 1935 peace dollars. That's the last year that they were producing these officially. More on that later, but it's better to have the 4-rays, just something that you can look for whenever you come across, a collection or something. Hey, do I have one of these more interesting varieties? And there are so many more VAMs than these, but this one is going to be number 13, the dot variety, 1926S. You can see it's ranging up a little bit more in uncirculated, but there's basically this entire dot to the left of this leaf protruding on the reverse side of the eagle, the perched eagle. Super interesting, and you're just looking for that dot. I don't want to hang too much time on some of these early VAMs, but they're pretty interesting. Some of them start ranging up a little more. This one might be a bit more valuable. There's a bunch of different wing break varieties, and so I just wanted to mention basically the way a wing break, whereas this was actually something that would have been like focused on the die. This is more of like the die deteriorates. It's been striking a lot of coins, and some cuds, planchet cracks appear when the die wears down and something breaks off. All of a sudden, it's not going to be striking. So metal is going to form and fill that gap. And so in this example, sold for not huge amounts of money, but enough where, okay, we're definitely pulling these ones out, and it's a pretty exciting find. Similar, they call it a tail, but it's really just, again, another die crack. This one's worth about double the previous wing break, a die crack on that O on the back of the peace dollar. And then we're going to kind of take a quick pivot and focus on one of the key date piece dollars, 1928. And actually, this is without a mint mark, so they're generally quite valuable. You can notice that there's actually a fair amount of these saved, so it's not like crazy expensive like that 1934 S was in uncirculated condition. Circulated raw, maybe beat up with it, dings and scratches, worth about $100, so still really cool. And it's actually nice because the piece dollars are affordable to put together a full set if you're willing to, take some time to go through completing it, and you're looking for sort of ungraded. Maybe some of them are clean, but you can find unclean ones. The high-end piece dollars are actually not that crazy expensive, so there's only one more that we're actually going to be covering in terms of when you don't have any of the proof for the specimen strike or the unknown ones. So also as a fun reminder, 1921, this is the first year that they're produced. They're actually co-produced. Morgan dollars are stopped in 1904, brought back in 1921, and then I think there was some kind of legislation. They're commemorating peace after World War I. They switch over and pivot to this design. There's also interesting iterations that different designs were included, but there was one I think that was holding like a broken arrow, but that was viewed as admitting defeat, so that was phased out. But it reminds me actually of the Ptolemaic eagles of the ancient Egyptians in kind of the 3rd to 1st century BC. Have a very similar eagle that's even more similar to the $10 gold Indian coin. Enough of that. I'm talking too much about ancient coins, and this should say mint state 67, not mint state 7. This would be about a $150 coin, much higher relief, but you can't really stack these. They're actually really fun to kind of hold in hand, but the dies were also breaking down too much, and so it was just kind of an ineffective coin, so they modify the relief in 1922 for the remainder of its series. If we go back here, you can kind of tell there's just like so much thicker. This one's kind of circulated, but it's a pretty noticeable difference if you're holding one of these in hand. 1922 piece dollars. This is one of those more aggressive VAMs. It's an earring. It's really just a larger cud die chip and would be a top 50 VAM. Sells for a few $100s as opposed to just maybe, an extra $20. But again, there's tons of VAMs. People can go down a rabbit hole with these. I didn't want to walk through the entire top 15 today, so I just kind of selected some of the more well-known and maybe easier to see in a presentation types, but really, really fun thing to look for. Next, we're going to actually talk, this is interesting because, and it might be tough to see if you're on a phone, but this is what's called an error coin, so it's not a variety. Like when we look at the earring, there's going to be lots of different earring coins because the die has an issue and then strikes a bunch of similar coins. This is a one-time thing. Flip over double struck, so basically it's struck one time, and the coin flips over, and instead of like basically going on its merry way and going into circulation, it finds itself back in between the dies and receives another strike. And so this was actually a really good catch because it circulated, but take a look. You can see there's actually some rays protruding in the piece's neck, in Liberty's neck. And there's also some minor die characteristics kind of all around the coin as well. But really the biggest thing, you can also see those rays going back on her forehead. Okay, what's going on here? Basically, it flipped over and received another strike. This sold for $7,500 at auction, and a great reminder that there can be some errors that are not so painfully obvious, where if you take a closer look at your coins, it's pretty unlikely that anybody will find another flip over double struck coin, but there's probably one or two of them out there, maybe more than that, and they're exciting to find because, again, millions and millions of these struck. Now we're taking a huge leap in terms of value. We're going to start with the matte finish 1921 piece dollars. So in the early parts of these, there were often collectors that were friends with the mint, or the mint would sort of just do some interesting, crazy things and strike some very, very low mintage, very, very today high value coins that back then would not, people would have been like, oh, this is a rare coin, but it was different. It was like a wealthy friend calls up their mint master friend and says, hey, can you produce a few of these for collectors? And today those are what everybody's chasing. So this coin in front of us, 1921 piece dollar. A lot of these values are a little bit fuzzy. They can change a good bit. They can be off. So it's kind of number 6 through number 2 could have a bit ambiguous in terms of their rankings, but I think that it's reasonable the way that I constructed it. But again, a mintage of 8, there's a very interesting finish that's been applied that's almost like a matte look that makes them specimen strikes. These are not like proof coins. They're not proof dies, but they sell for massive multiples and look, they sort of have like again, it's a matte finish. It's difficult to describe. I think that there's some dye characteristics that you can get into further, but there's actually a few different types. So for example, here, this is not like proof dyes. This is, I think that they almost like sandblasted the dyes, then they clean them or brush them, and struck a very limited quantity on this front. They're basically all 6-figure coins, and they do look antique. I mean, they're fully uncirculated, but still looking like maybe an XF40 or XF45 coin. And the reason is that it's just been a super limited run of interesting finish coins. Again, over $100,000. Then if we go back, so 1921, we have the higher relief. Here we have a bunch of different tiers of 1922 proofs, and or not proofs, but specimen strikes, whatever. But this is, the following year, and it has that same kind of sandblasted look to it. Obviously, there's like a few, but it's pretty similar in terms of how the coins end up looking, and that's not a bunch of cleaning lines. That's like some of the finish that's been applied, and you can see a lot of what looks like grainy, almost cleaning lines, but again, that's just the finish that's been applied. And this one sold $192,000. It's really a lot of money. There's also a matte finish look with a high relief, and there's like different types of relief, but again, very uncommon. If you see a high relief 1922, they only had that high relief 1921, except for in a very limited number of cases, like the one in front of us. They minted 10 of these, and these sell for even more. Beautiful coins, such interesting sort of situation where I wish that they would do this sort of thing with modern coins. I feel like it would be a fun way to add some high-end collectible excitement to some of our modern coins. And then number 2 is and there's not just one of these. I think there's only one from this die 3200, but a high relief 1922 coin. This was a production trial. There's very few of these made, but we are going to lose that matte finish, but still retain kind of the high relief nature. And then again, I think there's only one coin from this die that survived, and somebody marked it, but there's an unmarked version. But I think that one sold, in the range of like $350,000. I think that there's one of these available for $370,000 PCGS graded, that is available online, I think by Finest Known. But just an interesting coin. And not sure if you are expecting the last one, but I said 1921 and 1935. This, I don't know if $10 million is a way overestimation. I think it would easily go millions. I think that it might, though, hit, if it was legally owned, a 10 million plus. This is a 1964 D piece dollar. So remember, I said it would be another 30 years, 35 years. That's with the Ike dollar, and there's some transitional like first special strikes in 1970 and 71. 1964, though, they struck 300,000 piece dollars in Denver as they're getting rid of all the silver backup, but all of them were supposed to be melted. They were not authorized by Congress. Now the question is, did one mint worker slip this into their pocket? Did one mint worker basically take this coin and try to preserve it for all of history? PCGS has given a $10,000 reward if you find this coin and present it to them, just so that they can see it. There's none known. All of them were melted. I think it's probably, unless there's some kind of legal loophole, it's not, you're not allowed to own this coin. So odds that something comes forward, pretty low, but it's a really exciting coin in either case, and I just had to bring it up. It's truly the elusive rarity, maybe of the 20th century modern coins. It would be incredible if somebody saw it. This is not a real photo. This is like a mock-up that PCGS put together in there. Hey, here's our reward if you can send us one of these. But this thing blows my mind. And there's so many exciting piece dollars to focus on. I think that it definitely is less covered, less collected, and certainly there were less of them minted than the Morgan silver dollar, but by all means, a very iconic U.S. coin design, large planchet, great silver, fairly long time ago. Really interesting items. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to head on over to treasuretown.com and sign up for our email list to stay up to date on everything that's happening, whether it's auction updates, exciting new inventory drops, coin collecting news, or general informational resources. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on another one.